Welcome, everybody, to the American Space Museum. I'm MarQ Marquette, and we're so glad you're with us to stay curious today. We've got an interesting show talking about Apollo 13 and the tragic episode of the oxygen tank exploded on their way to the moon. This date 52 years ago in space history. We're going to talk a little bit about our beautiful Space View Park that was built as an homage to the Mercury, Gemini, Apollo era, and we've got a shuttle monument out there, and explain to you a little bit about how it all came about from our wonderful godfather, Charlie Mars was very instrumental in doing this, and Charlie's got a book about harvesting the handprints out we're going to talk about in a few minutes. But we wanted to let you know that for more than 20 years, the American Space Museum has been preserving the birth of America's space age right here in the delivery room, Brevard County, Florida. And with these artifacts of the space age, some over 60 years old now, we inspire the next generation of space workers. And believe you me, I've seen some 19, 20, 21-year-old women and men that are now engineers out there at Canaveral or Cape Kennedy Space Force and Kennedy Space Center. And it's exciting to know that they have been inspired by maybe not just our artifacts, but maybe artifacts in other museums around the country. So we're so pleased to be part of preserving America's wonderful space age. And you're along with us, and we appreciate that, following us on YouTube, Twitch, Spotify, and of course, Facebook Live, where we started with my friend Marty Winkle, and I started this over 2 years ago. We're approaching 540 episodes of Stay Curious that we brought you every day. And I'll have to admit, I had a Chamber of Commerce meeting and very involved with putting on our event, which is the 50th anniversary of the space shuttle being financed by the U.S. Congress. So today's show, bear with me, I had to throw it together sort of at the last minute, but I've got some good information for you. But first, let's get the thank you out of the way for that we are broadcasting from the Hyatt Place Studios inside the American Space Museum in downtown Titusville. And Hyatt Place is going to be the location for the golden anniversary of the dawn of the space shuttle era this Saturday. And Marty and I will be bringing this to you on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Spotify. So all the presenters are going to speak over an hour block, and then we're going to actually start and stop each episode like an individual Stay Curious program, so that we can segregate all of our great speakers. And if you can't watch it all day, you can go back and quickly find Jay Honeycutt talking about the history of the legislative part of the shuttle era in the Nixon administration. Jay Honeycutt, former launch director at Kennedy Space Center, is going to talk about that. And we've got a whole list of people that I'm going to put up on Facebook today again who's speaking there, but it's in our events area there. So we hope that you have a chance to come personally, but if not, you will share in the action. I know we've got 2 astronauts booked, Mike McCulley and Winston Scott, and I also know our friend Nicole Stott is also going to show up and say hi to all her friends. I expect the crowd will be 3/4 space workers. You know who you are, so please come out and support the American Space Museum and this event at Hyatt Place, right there, beautiful hotel we're so proud to partner with. Well, this is Apollo 13 week, and Apollo 13 was launched April 11th, 1970. It was one of the most smoothest 2 days in space. The countdown, the launch, everything was just humming along perfectly. Marty Winkle was my cameraman and working our Streamlabs program today, was an electrical engineer on the Grumman lunar module. What number, Marty, was it? 7, yes. Its tail number was technically 7. LM5 was Apollo 11, LM6 was Apollo 12, LM7 was 13. Here is the official emblem or logo of Apollo 13, and what it says, "To the moon for science" in Latin. And what you notice is the astronauts are not named on this patch. One of 2 patches where the astronauts commander decided that he wanted to be humble and keep their names off of there, which is interesting because just a couple days before the mission, Apollo 16 moonwalker Charlie Duke inadvertently exposed the crew to German measles, and command module pilot Ken Mattingly didn't have an immunity to measles, so he was replaced 3 days or 2 days before Marty launched by backup command module Jack Swigert. The crew integrated flawlessly with Mr. Swigert, who passed away of cancer about 10 years ago. And of course, Fred Haise is still alive, and Commander Jim Lovell is 93 years old. And we hope they're both doing well. And we're going to talk a little bit about Fred Haise, who is he's actually a emeritus board member here at the American Space Museum and best friends with Charlie Mars, who we're going to help pioneer building this Space View Park that is our green screen behind us today. To talk a little bit about the launch, of course, you know, an accident happened. Of course, the launch was flawless, but 2 days and 200,000 miles away from home, the number 2 oxygen tank exploded as they were doing a stir of it up there, doing something technical to it. That actually happened at 9:08 p.m., April 13th. As Swigert heard a sharp bang and a vibration as he was stirring up the cryo, as they called it, and he reported immediately, "Houston, we've had a problem here." Lovell came on and told the ground that it was a main bus B undervolt, and then the drama unfolded as 13 minutes later they looked out the window and saw their spacecraft venting oxygen out of a tank and the gauges going down in the command module, and they had to abandon ship, and the lunar module number 7 become the famous lifeboat. And as I go, oops, nope, that's not what happened to them, folks. All right, they actually had a malfunction, and boy, is that detailed how of how they actually dropped that, and it created a problem with that oxygen tank. But here is what the result was. 3 photographs. The one on the left is the one we're all familiar with. Of course, they didn't see this until they separated from the command module 4 hours before re-entry of the Earth's atmosphere after they looped around the moon and had to spend 3 days, almost 4 days getting back in a very cold environment in the lunar module, built to keep 2 men alive for 2 days, and it kept 3 men alive for almost 5 days. Outperformed everything flawlessly. And Fred Haise was the engineer, the astronaut that was in charge of being in touch with Grumman, the company that built the lunar module. So it was fortuitous that Fred Haise knew everything about inside of that wiring and where all the tanks were and everything in great detail of that lunar module. But here's a picture on the left that we're all familiar with, taken as they swung around to see the damage, and they were horrified about it. Took off the whole panel and blew out a lot of stuff. And then the second image is an enhanced, and the third one is combining a different angle of it. The third one, the middle one, is the same image on the left, like 8 color photos combined in the way they can do it digitally today. So this is still float. Did this ever come back to Earth and re-enter, Marty? Is that still orbiting the sun, probably, that service module? I'm not sure.
I'm not either, but I know that.
Well, I bet Robert Law knows out there. He's watching in Scotland. He may tell us. Or Dave Stange. Hello, Dave. And Dean Salzwedel in New Zealand. And hello to Larry Pushkar. Thank you for all following us and staying curious. Well, here is the boys after they came back alive, you know, this is just hours after they're on the recovery ship there, and they made them pose with this picture there. Not many pictures with Swigert, because all the pictures, they didn't have time to put him in the crew photos, so they had to do those actually after the failed successful mission. And, of course, the Apollo 13 movie is very popular. And, you know, Marty, generally, people like yourself that made a career out of the space business are pleased with how this movie turned out. It is a fairly accurate representation of the drama and so forth. A little bit of Hollywood liberty there. There's a scene where I think Kevin Bacon or Bill Paxton is one of the astronauts gets a little squirrely, and Hanks has got to kind of, hey, get your wits together. That never happens in the astronaut world. They are pretty much immune to those kind of emotions of being scared or freaking out, though it was very much a freak out situation there. But everyone loves the movie, and it's playing in its usual rotation in May on some of the cable news channels. So we recommend it to look at that and relive the drama. It was, even though you know how it's going to turn out, I've seen this movie many, many times, and I still get caught up in it. Don't you, Marty, sometimes? It is very realistic, and these guys' lives are on the line, and it's very dramatic how it's played out there with those actors. There is Mr. Fred Haise, nicknamed Fredo, and I get an email from him, from Fredo, every day from Johnson Space Center, a space history today in space type of thing. Marty Winkle has been involved with the Grumman reunions for Marty since 10 or 20, 20th anniversary. Celebrating the Apollo 11 as well as all the other Apollo landings. And they just had the 50th anniversary of the Apollo 13 event 52 years later because of COVID. And here is a picture of Fred at that. No, there's a picture of Fred and his granddaughter Madison cutting his hair. And I threw that in there. He put that on Facebook. We've interviewed Fred on Stay Curious before, remotely, and he's just a great guy. And in fact, those are dog shear clippers that Madison is using to cut Grandpa's hair there. That was when he couldn't get out and get a decent haircut. They just recently dedicated a statue to Fred at his hometown of Biloxi, Mississippi. And it's right on the Gulf there. We showed you pictures of that on Stay Curious a few weeks back. Hello, Hazel Banks. Hazel's one of our awesome followers, and she's been a supporter of this museum for decades. There she is with Fred. Hazel was a secretary to the astronauts in the Apollo era. She left right after Apollo 15 or 14, and but she knew Fred very intimately, taking steno from him and so forth over the years. And there you can see he's happy to see Hazel Banks there. Hi, she was named Hazel Seacack, was her maiden name back there. So Hazel, thank you for all that you do. She's been promoting our 50th anniversary of the shuttle being financed by Congress, and we'll see you Saturday to Stay Curious there, Hazel. And there's the man Marty, looking good in a sport jacket. And for once, somebody's straightening him out. There's Fred telling him something to with his hand gesture there. But Fred has been a friend of Marty's for, you've known him 30 years, Marty,
Right.
with the reunions?
No,
Actually, 50 some years.
I met him first during Limb 3
Oh, okay.
in 1967.
1967 is when he first met Fredo, working on LEM 3, which was the unmanned test module, wasn't it? LEM 4 was lunar module 9. No, LEM 3 would have been 9, and 4, LEM 3 would have been 9, and 4 was Apollo 10 dress rehearsal. Grumman had a beautiful model of the lunar module there. That is a pretty cool model of it, isn't it, Marty?
Yeah.
Northrop Grumman now. But that was Fredo back in February. He's, and of course I can't resist, folks, all right? Show you a selfie with the man there. Just a warm, wonderful gentleman. I got to walk him across the campus over there at the Radisson Hotel, and just like your grandpa, very unpretentious man, very approachable. And he's probably lived every day like it was his last after surviving that Apollo 13. Marty, anything about Apollo 13 that you wanted to add that's something that would be our Stay Curious friends out there be interested to know?
Not off the top of my head.
Off the top of your head? He's not, but the pride that you had to have in the fact that your machine worked beyond expectations really had to be something. And then Marty's boss, George Skurla, sent, he was the boss over all of the Grumman's workers here. They sent North American a bill for towing them back from the moon with mileage and stuff like that on it.
Well, we actually sent it to T.J. O'Malley.
Oh, they sent to T.J. O'Malley, who was the
He was the top man. I don't know what his position was, but he was the top person.
yeah, the top person at NASA at the time. They said,
No, for North American Rock.
oh, for North American Rockwell. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
He left NASA.
Okay. Yeah, T.J. O'Malley, a famous, we talked about him with yesterday's guest, Jim Harrington, launch director. If you missed Jim Harrington here yesterday, please go back to YouTube and watch that program. What an awesome interview we had with that man that launched 22 shuttles. But more importantly, he was very involved in the just molding the whole shuttle program together, management-wise, with him and Bob Seek doing a lot of that heavy work. For George Page, who launched STS-1 41 years ago yesterday. So, well, we're going to talk a little bit about this gentleman here, seated with Mr. Haise there. That is Charlie Mars with his wife Barbara, and one of his daughters is there with Mr. Haise there. This is one of his visits here. Charlie Mars was a NASA manager. He started with Convair and Coco. No, he started with Martin and Coco, and he quickly segued into NASA management as a manager that could work with. He worked on the lunar module with all the astronauts, and Grumman was one of his jobs. Then he worked on Vandenberg as a shuttle base at Slick 6. He worked on the International Space Station Freedom, it was called. And when he retired, he couldn't stay still, and he created this Space View Park. All right. And the idea of Space View Park is was the short story is a dentist from Titusville went to Los Angeles, and he saw in Hollywood the Grauman Chinese Theater handprints in the sidewalk of the actors and actresses. He said, wow, we need that for our astronauts. And Titusville downtown was going through a renaissance, so a group approached the city council, and some of them were NASA people involved, and they said, we got an idea to take the handprints of the Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo astronauts and build a park around it. And bingo, 20-some years later, it has been thriving. People enjoy walking their dogs around it. It's right on the river, Indian River, and there's three big condos there that actually took property that they were going to go up with the Apollo and shuttle, but it got bought out from under them. So Charlie Mars was very instrumental in helping get the handprints of the astronauts because he had the connections. There is the beautiful homage to the Apollo area there. That is a statue of President Kennedy. The relief around the Apollo was carved by Sandy Storm, an excellent sculpturist. The names you see on these pylons on the left are names of space worker. Marty is on one out there. There's John Borline. I know who John is. Marty's in two places. You're in the shuttle and the Apollo area there. John Borline he worked Atlas there. And you see he is a Boeing, and William Culpeper was what's he? Electronic company. You got Thomas Weissmuller, NASA, on and on. They gave our U.S. Space Walk of Fame Foundation $100 to put your name out there on this beautiful pylon, and they're etched on kind of a plastic marble looking thing there. And the other pylon to the right has the handprints of the astronauts, and there's a couple astronaut handprints right there you see. So I wish that some of the companies I worked for, and one of them was Newsweek magazine in my youth, wish they'd say, Mark, give us $100 and we'll put you on the wall on Madison Avenue in New York City. I'd love that. And that's what's kind of here, folks, is these people are immortalized for what they did for America's space program, take man to the moon on the greatest journey of mankind, and in a race to beat the Soviet Union there. And so this is just a beautiful park. I call it all the time just like a a Roman Colosseum, a Taj Mahal, Eiffel Tower, one of a kind place here in downtown Titusville. There is the man, President Kennedy, who, of course, said we're going to the moon before the end of the decade, not because it's easy, but because it's hard. And Kennedy even said in that speech, we're not sure how we're going to do it, but we're going to have to invent things along the way that we don't even know what we're going to have to invent. But he knew that it was going to make America great and propel us into the lead, not just in space, but in all areas of technology, where we still stand as a tremendous leader of the space efforts in there. Of course, Japan's a good partner, Canada, European Space Agency with us. Marty, we've got a comment.
Yeah, Dave Stange mentioned that everything I'm reading says a surface module burned up, re-entering Earth's atmosphere, but you were questioning the ascent stage, not the surface module.
Well, I was actually thinking the service module at the time. Yeah, it was because we had a picture of that. And I thought the service module probably did burn up because the momentum it would have had, the gravity of the Earth probably would have sucked it in. But the ascent stage of Apollo 13 is also burned up in the Indian Ocean or something.
I think so.
Is that, yeah. But thank you, Dave Stange, for looking that up there. We appreciate everybody fact checking us and because it is rocket science and it has to be right on there. So there are the handprints that I showed you in that other picture back here. You see the slanted slopes there. Many of you have put your hands on Buzz Aldrin there, and I emphasize this is the only place in the world you can put your hands on Buzz Aldrin, Neil Armstrong, Gene Cernan, on and on. And then we have a Gemini section that has all the Gemini astronauts. And then we have a section that has the Mercury astronauts. We don't have all of the astronauts' handprints because some of them died before 1999 and 2000 when these handprints were to be harvested, so to speak. And that leads me to this book. We were talking about Charlie Mars. Charlie, here's your book, Harvesting the Handprints, a self-published book where Charlie has taken each of these handprints. There's one there. Talked about the process. Ooh, I whipped it open to Neil Armstrong getting his handprints and the big story on there. Neil was one of the last ones. He was very kind of skeptical of it, as he always was, because being one of the most famous humans on the face of the earth, everybody wanted a piece of you. And but Charlie Mars finally did get Neil to do his handprints. Let's go here. There's Neil's handprints. These are the ones we have here in the museum. Actually, Neil's got 3 sets. He's got one in the museum here, obviously the most well-worn. He's out at Spaceview Park in the Apollo area, and then he's in the Gemini Monument area because of he had 2 missions there. And there he's got GT8 and A11, and he's one of the few, Marty, who printed his name and didn't sign it. And this is a plaster. It's a big tub of plaster, rectangular, with wood frame around it that Charlie had, that he'd push your hands in it, and it wasn't very pliable. He actually had to almost beat your hands down, he said, into it to make the impression. And we have those original plaster handprints in our storage areas. There is Neil Armstrong with Charlie and the handprints that were cast, and forget exactly when, but I wanted to read the preface to this, Harvesting the Handprints and Side Trips, Acquiring the Handprints for the Gemini and Apollo Monuments in Spaceview Park, Titus, Florida, also shuttle astronauts for the Space Museum. Other stories related to spacecraft processing are in his book. And Fredo's part of his dedication is, this book is the story of the task that Charlie took on to collect handprints of all the still living Apollo astronauts. I know that some of my comrades took some arm twisting to support, but they found out that Charlie is a persistent and tough guy to turn down. At his own expense, he made trips all over the country to collect those imprints that you can now see at the work of art Apollo Monument. And thank you, Fred, for that introduction to Charlie's handprints there. This Titusville was, oh, they don't have the date in there when they harvested Armstrong's handprints. But it is quite an amazing thing, and actually they're quite heavy. We used this the other day. This is Rick Hauk, who had a birthday the other day. Shuttle astronaut. All right, these are quite heavy. Okay, and that's how they look on the back. Golly, Marty, they probably weigh 30 pounds. I don't know. I'm a weakling today. I can't gauge all that stuff, but very, very, we hope that when you come to visit us, you definitely take in Spaceview Park, and it is a beautiful place to watch a launch, of course. And we have an homage out there to the Columbia and Challenger accident and Apollo 1 fire. And there is a separate monument out there to space workers who lost their lives. And very frequently I go by there, and it's not unusual to see roses at any of those sites there where some nice thinking person has put flowers out there to remember our fallen comrades. And we can't ignore the fact that we also have Sally Ride's handprints. That is the second most well-worn ones in our museum. She died of leukemia in 2012, I believe. Gosh, 10 years she's been gone. And what an inspiration to us all. And around her birthday, I'll send a picture of her handprints to the Sally Ride Science Museum in San Diego, her adopted hometown out there. So if you've been in our museum, I know Larry Pushker, you probably had your hands on there. So you got your DNA on there. Now, we wipe them off frequently, of course. Good to see them out because we had them put away for the COVID pandemic for a long time. So, well, I hope that you've enjoyed a little bit of looking back at Apollo 13 in a little different positive light and looking at our emeritus board member, Fred Haise. We're so grateful that Fred has supported our museum and grateful for Charlie Mars. Saw Charlie the other day here in our museum to give us copies of his book. I'm going to find out how many he has of these because I know several of you out there probably already asking, how can I own this book? And we're going to work on a way to maybe put it on electronically. But thank you, Charlie, for my personal copy there and all that you've done as our godfather of this beautiful museum that preserves the birth of America's space age. 11 miles away, where Marty and I are sitting, is the Artemis rocket ready to take us back to the moon. And we're so excited about that. Of course, this is a photograph I took of the Gemini Monument there, and their contractors are in marble out there. And we'd like to take more names of the Gemini contractors, but it's quite expensive to get someone out there to cut that marble. So if you know a Gemini worker and wants to be part of that, send us their name and we'll bundle them up and see how many we can get to get them carved out there. Of course, way in the distance out there, this was an autumn day, I think, is the vehicle assembly building across the Indian River there. So yeah, Marty, shows the VAB there. Beautiful clear day on the Space Coast. You're looking across the Indian River at approximately 10 miles, all right, to the VAB. So, well, thank you, Hyatt Place, for sponsoring Stay Curious here in your Hyatt Place studios, and thank you for hosting our golden age of the space shuttle. We'll talk some more about that tomorrow, along with Shuttles of April. We'll also talk about, and then Friday we'll be coming to you from the Hyatt Place studio and have Robert and Dana on there, the general manager and assistant manager, about it out there. So thank you, Christopher Mick, for watching. Ann Rusche Sullivan, thank you. Gary Gerald's watching. Carlton Bailey, hey, Carlton. I pulled off some pictures of I forget, I know, the STS-95. I was getting ready for Triple T to talk about John Glenn Saturday, and your picture, Carlton, was the walkout picture I saw there. Ophelia, thank you for watching in Normandy, France. Hey, Mikey Haddad, thank you. Hope you're enjoying your vacation. And Ashley Kendrick, hey, Ashley, whose son Ryan is the proud papa of my granddaughter, McKinley. So Thank you, Ashley, for watching, and I know you're enjoying our little bundle of joy there that Ryan and my daughter Jessica brought us. So we appreciate, of course, the Usiak brothers, Tom and Mark. Mark Usiak, thank you for watching. Big brother Tom's going to be our photographer, Marty, at our shuttle and golden anniversary this weekend. So we're excited about that. We're excited about all of you that like, share, follow, and subscribe to us on our social media platforms. Please tell your friends to do likewise, all right? And Marty, anything else? Well, thank you all for wanting to stay curious. I'm Mark Marquette, and I'll see you tomorrow with some tales of April space shuttles to bridge the space between us.